Welcome to the safe place where we learn how to train and feed our dogs better. And today I have a special guest. I have Braden Rude from Raised Right, gently cooked pet foods. And we're going to talk about arguably one of the, if not the best, gently cooked pet foods on the market today. So we're just going to jump right into it. I know you guys are excited to hear from Braden. First question for you, Braden, is what are the three key differences of Raised Right compared to other competitors in the market?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I'm personally a big fan of yours, so to be on your podcast today is really an honor. So thank you for this. And um, so for your question, so I'd never say a negative word about any competitor, but I'm happy to share some facts with you about what we feel separates us from others in our category. So the first thing would be our recipes. So through working with veterinarian Dr. Karen Becker and pet food formulation expert Steve Brown, we were able to formulate our adult dog recipes to meet AAFCO's requirements for a complete and balanced diet through using only whole foods without having to add any synthetic vitamins and minerals. We've formulated limited ingredient recipes that have very simple ingredient decks. All of our adult dog recipes have 10 ingredients or less. Some recipes have just as few as 7 or 8 ingredients. And as far as we know, our recipes have the highest protein content of all the foods in our category because we don't use any high carb fillers like potato or rice or oats or barley or pasta. And because of this, most of our recipes have less than 2% carbs. And the second thing I'd say would be everything we're doing for food safety. So this is really why we launched Raised Right in the first place. Some of the people listening might remember the massive pet food contamination outbreak that happened back in 2007. And when this happened, my mom started cooking food for our family's pets because she didn't trust any of the foods out there. And as time went by, people heard about what my mom was doing, and they wanted her to start cooking for their pets too because they didn't really trust the food they were feeding their pets either. And what many people don't know is that most of the pet food on the market today isn't produced to the same standards as the food that we all eat as humans. And we can proudly make the human grade pet food claim as every ingredient in our food is past the same standards necessary for human consumption. And all our food is lightly cooked in a USDA inspected human grade facility. And in addition to this, every single batch we cook gets lab safety tested for pathogens like E. coli, Listeria, and Salmonella. And we have a hold release program where we don't ever ship our food unless it passes the lab safety tests. And for transparency, we post the test results of all the lab safety tests on our website for everyone to see, along with a map tracing our ingredients to their source and a video showing how our food gets made.
That's powerful.
And,
question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you literally just say pasta? Is that how you say pasta?
Yeah.
Is that a Canadian thing?
I think so.
Or
Yeah.
a Boston? I know you're in Boston now, but okay, sorry. I had to go there because I was like, pasta? That I haven't heard that one before.
That's funny. Yeah, pasta for everyone. Pasta,
Yeah, tomato. Yeah. Okay, keep going. It's good.
That's funny. Yeah, no, and I guess the third thing I would say would be the emphasis we're placing on environmental sustainability. So we're, in addition to everything we're doing for pets, we also want to be doing a lot of great things for the planet too. And our shipping is carbon free as we're offsetting our carbon emissions through reforestation and forest preservation. We are also plastic neutral certified as we're removing as much plastic from nature as we use. So this goes beyond just our packaging, as it also includes the plastic that gets used in shipping and distribution, from things like the shrink wrap that goes around our pallets, and even the tape that goes on our boxes. And additionally, our shipping boxes are recyclable, and the refrigerated liners used to keep our food frozen in transit are compostable. So that's one extra thing I'd say we're doing. That's something that I think we're all really proud of, as especially as farmers and ranchers. We want to make sure that the world is being left hopefully in a better place than how we found it.
So what you're saying is that you are arguably one of the, if not the most ethical, sustainable, gently cooked pet food companies out there that's completely family owned, correct? Your entire family comes from a background of farming, ranching, and that's kind of where everything started, correct?
Yeah, actually, it dates back to even the age of the Vikings. So my last name Rude is origin in Norway, and so since the age of the Vikings, our family's been farming. So it goes back for centuries. And so the farm I grew up on, my dad bought it from his dad, my grandpa, and so we got deep roots in the world of farming and ranching. Growing up, we planted crops like wheat, barley, oats, flax, peas, and today we raise cattle. Um, so we raise Angus, and we have some Simmental bulls, and yeah, and we have
That's
horses too. Just a few horses, enough to kind of round up the cows, and
yeah,
then
get the job
obviously,
done.
yeah,
I love
exactly,
it.
and obviously dogs and cats too.
Of course, always dogs and cats. I mean, you are a dog and cat food company. So let me just summarize a little bit from my experience with your food and some of the things that kind of stand out, just to kind of give a high level. I have some questions already coming in. So you and your family, along with the wonderful Dr. Karen Becker, probably the most world recognized veterinarian ever, help formulate this food. But you guys handcraft and craft a complete and balanced diet that is gently cooked. So this is a dog food. You also have for cats as well, and all life stages, which we'll talk about all that and kind of um, revealing a lot right away, but I'm just too excited. So you have this gently cooked food that you can get at your local independent pet store, which if you are looking for this, I imagine that if you go to your local pet shop, they don't have it, they can request raised right. Or they can order online, which is how I get your food, because it's not near, I don't have any pet shops right near me right now. But what really stands out to me about your brand is if we just jump right into the ingredients, I want to show one of the ingredient panels on here also to give people a look of what this food actually looks like. So, this is a gently cooked food, meaning, let me go back up a little bit, meaning, when we think about the different types of pet food, we have they're categorized by how they're manufactured. So, you have ultra processed, which would be a traditional high heat extruded kibble, basically no moisture, a lot of nutrients are depleted, protein can be devoid from that as well. And then when you go towards fresher food options that are minimally processed and more nutrient bioavailability in them, that's when you're going to get to the gently cooked category, which if you're going from a kibble and you want to feed a fresher diet, I think one of the best first steps you can do is to feed a gently cooked food. Dogs tend to do really well with that. But looking at some of the ingredients on here, I'm just kind of jumping in because, again, very excited. One thing you won't see in here, um, is the use of vitamin, synthetic mineral packs, excessive fillers like corns, potatoes, wheats, glutens, soy, which I'm not a big fan of. If you look at these ingredients, I mean, it's turkey. This is just for their turkey formula. They have a bunch of recipes, even a pork, which I think is great for a novel protein, but turkey, thigh, heart, liver, carrots. Literally, there's what'd you say, 10 ingredients, Brayden?
Yeah, that recipe has 10. Some have as few as just 7 or 8.
That's insane. And that is like, for those of you watching, when you're thinking about feeding a better food for your dog or a fresher food, just look at the ingredient panel on the back of your dog's food, regardless of the type of food, and compare it to an ingredient. We'll look at the beef here, compare it to an ingredient panel like this, that there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ingredients, and that's it. And so Braden, can you tell me a little bit about how this is complete and balanced? Again, without the use of starchy fillers like potatoes, rice, oats, corn.
Yeah, so this was something that was very important to Dr. Becker with all the research she's done, because the problem with too many carbs is that they convert to glucose in the blood, and high glucose levels cause inflammation, and inflammation is the root of almost every chronic disease. And so with our food being so low in carbs, it's a great anti-inflammatory diet. And this is the primary reason why veterinarians have been recommending our recipes to help dogs and cats prevent and recover from a variety of health issues. So there have been some pretty, I mean, miraculous is a strong word, but I'll use it. There's been some pretty miraculous things that have happened over the years. For the first couple of years when we launched, I was taking all of our customer service calls, and I remember a few calls where people would call in tears, thanking us for helping save their dog's life. And I remember I had a gentleman call in saying that his dog was having seizures, and 4 different veterinarians had told him that they thought it was time to put his dog down. And the 5th veterinarian he saw was more educated on pet nutrition, and she told him that there was a correlation between high carb diets and seizures in dogs. And she then told him about our food because of how low carb it is. And he then started feeding it, and the seizures started going away, and they eventually stopped happening entirely. And I won't tell every story on this podcast, but I do encourage anybody listening to go to the reviews page on our website, and they'll see some pretty amazing stories of the impact our food is making in pets' lives. And it really all goes back to Dr. Becker with all her research that she's done, and Steve Brown too. He's a wealth of information as well. I really follow their lead when it comes to pet nutrition, and they formulated our food not just to help healthy pets stay healthy, but also with some of these different health issues in mind that our food can help pets with.
Yeah. And I think what really stands out about your food is, oh, and by the way, for those watching, this food will be linked in the description below or in the comments below. And they were kind enough to give a code for you to try on your first order, Pets20. So you guys can definitely check that out afterwards. But what really stood out to me about this brand additionally was the fact that you spent the time to formulate in such a way that it didn't require these starchy fillers, because as you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your average carbohydrate amount in your food is only about 2% or less. Is that correct?
Yeah, most of our recipes have less than 2%.
Yeah.
A lot of them are kind of even in the like 1.5%
Yeah.
range. I think the only one over 2% I think is our original pork adult dog recipe, and that's at like 3.5%. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
very
for,
very
and
low carbs.
yeah, and for reference, a standard popular common kibble will be 40, 50, 60% carbohydrates. There's a massive, massive difference there. And you may be thinking, okay, well, why do I care about the carbs? Well, if you followed me for any length of time, you know that that I'm not a fan of high carbohydrate diets or treats for my dogs, because it is widely known and accepted that that dogs have no biological requirement for carbohydrates. And that's not to say that, and I think Braden would agree with this, that we're anti carbs and all carbs are bad. But the dogs, if I'm going to feed a carbohydrate to my dog, it's going to be in the form of a nutrient dense produce like some vegetables or fruit to help them meet their micronutrients, mineral vitamins, which is how this food has formulated their food, which is what is so exciting for me. So I think that's something that is really important to think about. And a really quick pro tip for those of you watching, if you're wondering how many carbs are in your dog's food, and this is just a general estimate, but if you look at the back of the bag at the guaranteed analysis, I'll give you, it's probably small to see there, but if you add up the fat, the carb, the protein, the fat and the protein and the moisture and all those values there, if you add that up and subtract that value from 100, that'll give you a rough estimate of what the carbohydrates are in the food. And you'll see that every kibble out there, because the way that they manufacture it with starchy ingredients, is going to be, I think the lowest I've ever seen is 40 something percent, but usually 50, 60, 70% carbohydrates, which is just in in any way that you look at it, excessive. So um back to raised right. So you also do not use an excessive amount, which I see in almost every other food, of vitamin synthetic minerals, which, for the record, is really valuable because if we think about brands trying to take shortcuts, both in pet food and human food, it's a lot less expensive. It's cheaper for a brand to just get a vitamin mineral synthetic pack, outsource it from who knows where, and then spray it onto the food so that it's quote unquote complete and balanced, to AFCO's guidelines, instead of actually formulating a food with a veterinarian like they've done here with Dr. Becker to make sure that it is complete and balanced through the use of whole foods. Obviously, it's going to be more expensive to do it that way, but it's obviously the more natural, biologically appropriate way. So, was it difficult, Braden, for you guys to? I mean, I know you worked with Dr. Becker, but to come to that decision to try to be as synthetic, vitamin, mineral free as possible?
Yeah, it was very challenging, and I remember during the start of the process, Dr. Becker and Steve Brown said, it's gonna be very, very hard to do. This is something that's not easy. Not easy. It's much easier to formulate through adding a lot of different vitamins and minerals, and as you said, it's also a lot cheaper. And the main driving reason we wanted to do it is because it's common knowledge that the bioavailability of whole foods is much higher than synthetic vitamins and minerals. So it's always best to get nutrients through whole foods if you can do it. And it wasn't easy to make this happen, and it's one of the main reasons we were awarded the 2019 Innovation Award for Nutrition from the Innovative Veterinary Care Journal. And it's, I think I touched on this. It's a lot more expensive to formulate through whole foods, as it's much cheaper to use a laundry list of synthetics to meet AFCO's requirements for a complete and balanced diet. And while we were able to formulate our adult dog recipes to meet AFCO's requirements for a complete and balanced diet through using only whole foods, we did need to add a few minerals to our puppy recipes because of their increased requirements for certain nutrients like calcium and phosphorus. So we couldn't quite make those recipes complete using only whole foods, but all the minerals are from a human grade supplement supplier, and we do use the bare minimum amount of supplements needed to meet AFCO's requirements for a complete and balanced diet for puppies. So we said it's, for the puppy stage, it's very important that they have enough calcium and phosphorus with their growing bones. So we wanted to make sure that they were good, and we tried very hard to find a way to make the puppy recipes through only whole foods, but we couldn't find a way to do it. So for the majority of a dog's life who's eating only raised right, they will be eating our adult dog recipes, which are complete and balanced through using only whole foods.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think something to consider with that is, in my opinion, that would make this food excellent to feed as an everyday food for the dog's lifespan. But also, let's say you're watching this and you're just starting to think about feeding a fresher food diet or adding toppers. I know that I share a lot of pet safe human foods that you can add to the bowl. uh, this would be arguably one of the most nutrient dense options that you could add as a topper. So let's say you're, in my opinion, especially because it's whole foods only. And so what you could do is you could take your bowl of kibble, and let's say again you want to add some fresh foods just to add some life back into the bowl, some natural moisture. You can take that bowl, remove up to 20% of the kibble and replace it with raised right. And you could even switch between their proteins. And that's just an excellent, easy, and even more affordable way to give your dog some real fresh foods. Do you have a lot of customers that do this currently, feeding this as a topper?
Yeah, we do, especially bigger dogs. As your dog weight goes up, so does the amount to feed, and therefore so does the cost to the pet parent. So we have customers with bigger dogs who are feeding our food as a topper, because a lot of people know that it's better to have some fresh food in the dog's bowl than none at all. And I think a lot of people don't know that with kibble being so low in moisture, dogs are in a constant state of dehydration because it's almost physically impossible for them to drink the amount of water that they need to in order to get hydrated, as their bodies were designed to absorb moisture through the food that they're eating. So most kibble has between 10% to 12% moisture, and where our food ranges from 62% to 74% moisture depending on the recipe.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because dogs were actually designed to get their moisture from the food that they eat, not just drinking out of a water bowl. Though they need access to the fresh water bowl at all times. I think that's something that we as pet parents forget, because remember, for the record, and I know I say this all the time, we're not. First off, I'm not anti kibble by any means. I think there's a time and place for that. But kibble's only about 100 years old. And before that, dogs ate real, fresh, whole human foods. And that's really that's the more ancestral diet, if you will, or natural diet. And that's what really drew me to Raised Right, is because that's how they formulate their foods. And I know that you mentioned this earlier, but just to clarify, you have puppy formulas and you have adult formulas, correct? So it's really the entire lifespan.
Correct. Yeah, that was another thing that was really important to Dr. Becker, was to formulate stage of life specific recipes instead of recipes for all life stages. So for the people listening who don't know this, when a company is advertising that their food is suitable for all life stages, it means that the company is saying that the same recipe can be fed to both puppies and adult dogs. And most companies formulate for all life stages because they can get a higher profit margin, because fewer products means lower packaging costs. And the problem with all life stage diets is that they aren't optimal, because adult dogs don't have the same nutritional requirements as puppies do. So if an adult dog is eating an all life stages diet their entire life, they're getting far more calcium, phosphorus, zinc, copper, and sodium than they need. And there are some experts who believe this is contributing to some different health issues. For example, Too much sodium can lead to high blood pressure, and high blood pressure can cause heart issues. Um, Too much calcium is associated with kidney and bladder stones, which cause urinary issues, and urinary issues are common in older pets. And give a give a quick reference here. The minimum calcium requirements for puppies is more than double the minimum calcium requirements for adult dogs. It's a big difference. So if your dog is eating all life stage diet, they're essentially eating puppy food for their entire life. And because all life stage recipes and puppy food are really the same thing, as the nutritional levels of an all stage diet have to be high enough to meet AAFCO's minimums for puppies, where AAFCO's maximums are the exact same for both adults and puppies. But the minimums are drastically higher for puppies. So this is why we have a line of recipes formulated specifically for adult dogs, and then another line of recipes formulated specifically for puppies.
Right. I think that's so critically important as well because they are at two completely different life stages with different developmental needs, and so addressing those individually is harder on you as the brand, but also really important for our dogs. Speaking of recipes, you have two different ones with pumpkin added and ones without. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So we have our original recipes, which we've had since the beginning. So they're predominantly meat with a bit of shredded carrots and either blueberries or cranberries, depending on the recipe, with some organic herbs like organic dried kelp and organic spearmint, along with cod liver oil. And we recently launched a line of pate recipes, which are also predominantly meat, but instead of the shredded carrots and the berries, we use pureed pumpkin. So there were a couple things that inspired the launch of these recipes. So one is we frequently had customers reaching out asking if they could maybe add a little bit of pumpkin to our recipes, as the health benefits, I think, are becoming more widely known among pet parents when it comes to pumpkin. And the other reason is that while many pet parents love to see the blueberries and shredded carrots in our original recipes, there is a segment of pet parents who want pate style recipes, as they want any fruits and veggies in the recipes to be pureed. And so the texture of our pate recipes is slightly softer than our original recipes. And in saying that, our original recipes are still very soft, as there are many dogs who don't have any teeth who are eating these recipes. But our pate recipes are naturally a bit softer because they are higher in moisture because of the pumpkin puree.
I love that. And what's cool about that is you have variety for dogs who might be picky, for dogs that might have different preferences on the texture. And then you have how many different proteins do you have? You have pork, chicken, turkey, beef. What am I
That's
missing?
that's correct. Yeah, so we have those
Okay.
four proteins available in each of our original recipes and our pate recipes. So we have original beef, original turkey, original pork, original chicken, and then we have beef and pumpkin pate, turkey and pumpkin pate, pork and pumpkin pate, and chicken and pumpkin pate. And then for puppies, we have beef, turkey, and chicken.
Okay. So what's great about that is for those again that have been watching my content for a while know that I'm a big advocate of rotation, protein rotation. There's typically if you have a dog that's can only eat one food, one protein, and nothing else without having GI upset, that's usually indicative of some type of gut microbiome unbalance issue that I recommend to seek support from an integrative or holistic vet. But I love this idea of having multiple protein options and different texture options for this. And like we talked about before, because I saw somebody ask a question where you can get this is again, if you go to your local pet shop, your independent pet store, just ask for raised right. If they don't have it today, likely they can order it from their distributor, I imagine, or if enough people ask, that helps. I know it helps raised right get into more stores. Or you could just order it online, which is again what I do. So that's really nice. And they have cat formulas as well. Braden, another question I have, and it's really important to me, and it's something I've been talking about a lot, is your food being a human grade food instead of what most foods are on the market, which are mostly feed grade. Raised right is human grade. Can you talk more about your decision to do that?
Yeah, yeah. So just to make sure everyone listening is on the same page, our food isn't made in my mom's kitchen anymore, as it's made in a USDA inspected human grade facility. And not taking anything away from my mom's kitchen, as she keeps it immaculate. But USDA protocols are really on another level with all the steps that are in place for food safety. So if any protocols aren't followed per their exact specification, the USDA inspector will step in and shut it down. It's no joke. So if someone even drops a glove on the floor and picks it up with their hand and touches anything, the production run is over. So I got a quick story. So I remember on our first production run, I wanted to be on the floor when it was happening, and when I was out there, I accidentally dropped a glove on the floor, and our production facility manager came up to me with the USDA inspector and was like, "Don't move." He's like, "Here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick up the glove you dropped with your other glove, and don't touch anything with either of your hands, and follow us." I felt like I was getting arrested. I was even walking with my hands up. I was like, just to make sure they could see my hands. No, I didn't touch anything on the way out. And they were like, "We will open the exit door for you so you don't touch anything. And then when you enter the post-production room, once you're in there, you have to remove all your gear. So like your gloves, the hairnet, the production jumpsuit, boots, everything." And then they're like, "After you leave the post-production room, you got to wash your hands, and then you can re-enter through the pre-production room all over again and put on completely new gear to re-enter." And so, they take it very, very seriously, and I love that. That was our first production run. I'm like, man, this is so important. It was really the whole inspiration of our company to make the safest pet food possible after what happened in 2007. And so, while stringent safety protocols are essential, what's perhaps even more important is the quality of the ingredients themselves, with being able to make the human grade claim. So a big difference between human grade dog food and most of the dog food out there, which does not meet human grade standards, that food is referred to as feed grade dog food. And the main difference is feed grade dog foods, they're allowed to use ingredients that don't meet the same standards necessary for human consumption. And that includes things like 4D meat. So 4D stands for dead, dying, diseased, or down. And growing up on a ranch, raising cattle, unfortunately, you spend enough time on a ranch, you will see what 4D meats look like in person. And I certainly would never eat that, and I would never want my dog eating that either. So for us, those were the big reasons why it was very important for us to make human grade dog food. It's not just how it's made with all the stringent safety protocols, but it's the ingredients that go in the recipes too.
Yeah. And you go even as far as to on your website, you can actually trace your ingredients, and which I think you touched on earlier, but I think that's really pretty cool, because not only do we know that your ingredients are human grade, which means, again, fit for human consumption. So if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for them, which I love that mentality. But you also can trace the ingredients back to the source, which I think is pretty powerful. And I think is something that you don't see very often. So I thank you guys for doing that. I think that's really powerful.
Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah, and then, and again, I know you talked about this earlier, but the fact that you, um, do lab testing, on every single batch instead of I know a common practice is to do randomized testing. So you may get a batch of dog food that hasn't been tested, but yours is every single batch, if I'm not mistaken, and you're testing for pathogens like E. coli, listeria, things like that. And then you even share test results on your website, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So every single batch gets lab safety tested for pathogens like E. coli, listeria, and salmonella. And if you go to and also we have a hold release program where we don't ever ship our food unless it passes the lab safety test. So that's really important. You know, if maybe you did a random test and you didn't have a hold release program and then everything gets shipped out and gets into people's hands before you get the test results back, that's when pets could get sick. Pets could
Yeah.
even worse. You know, so it's very important that nothing leaves until we get the lab results back. And then
Yeah.
if you go on our website, if you go to the home page and you scroll down to I think it's like the fifth section, um, there's a section there where you can click and see the lab test results of every single batch. So if you look at your bag and you see the best by date on it, you can match that to the lab safety test right on our site. So you can see everything right there.
That's amazing. That transparency is something that I think us as pet parents want to see more of. And I think the only way that we're going to see more of that is to support the brands that are doing that, like Raised Right. So I think that's really exciting. And one thing I almost forgot to mention is not only do you have food, but you also have treats, which my dogs love because they're single ingredient and they're light and crispy. I wish I should have brought I think I'm out, but I should have brought a bag to show. But they're single ingredient treats. Again, you can ask for at your local pet store or order online linked below. Um, Tell me a little bit about your treats and your kind of thought behind them.
Yeah, so we have a line of single ingredient treats. They're called our meat bites, and they don't have any preservatives in them. They're just simply we have beef, which just has beef liver in it. We have our turkey meat bites, which have just turkey liver. Pork meat bites that have just pork liver, and then our lamb meat bites that have just lamb liver. So just like our food, everything's lab safety tested, hold release program. And we also have a line of single ingredient meal toppers too, called our Shake Flakes. And what inspired our Shake Flakes was actually just listening to our customers. We had people calling in saying, "Hey, I've been crumbling your meat bites by hand onto my dog's food at mealtime to try and get their appetite up." They would like put it on top of kibble to try and stimulate the appetite. And so our shake flakes are just basically our meat bites in very like crumbled form. So all you got to do is kind of shake the flakes on top of the dog's bowl versus having to crumble it up by hand. So um, people have been loving those too.
Yeah, what I have it on the screen here. What I love to do with these little small crumbs is put them in a snuffle mat, which is like a puzzle game for dogs that has little felt pieces or fabric pieces that your dog has to then sniff and dig and forage to find. And the little crumbs, they take my dog so much longer to try to dig and find out. Or this could be a great way to add some healthy protein and nutrients to a kibble as well, like just shaking it on there or on whatever you're feeding your dog. So that's really cool. I love the idea of these. And then I'll put a picture of the treats on the screen as well, just so you guys have an idea of what they look like. It's like they like crispy and crunch. I wish I would have had examples, but there's my dogs just love that crunch factor, and so they really enjoy biting down on those. And as you alluded to, Braden, is you can break it into smaller pieces because they come in like little squares
Yeah,
that you could break into smaller pieces for small dogs or the little bit bigger piece for bigger dogs. So it works for both.
correct. Yeah, there's a lot of dog trainers that are using them for training treats because little puppies, you can break it into like the smallest little piece, and one of those little treats will go a really long way. So yeah, they're like crunchy chip style uh, treats. Yeah,
Yeah, and the fact that they're
it's
made
called
with
liver. You know, chips kind of a might not be the
I
best word, but
know.
that they're like meat chips.
Meat chips, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the fact that they are made with liver makes them very high value. So if you have a picky dog, it's probably why you're seeing so much success with your Shake Flakes is that these are great for really, really picky dogs, liver. So that's really cool. Um, anything else that I haven't covered that you wanted to make sure that anybody watching this that's kind of on the fence about? Well, let me ask you this actually first: is if somebody is really interested in your brand and they're kind of want to get their feet wet, what would you recommend as a good starting place, like a good protein to start with, or a good sample pack to start with? What would you recommend?
so we do offer sample boxes on our website which come with just 4 bags. So each bag contains 1 pound of food, and you can mix and match any custom combo of recipes you'd like, just as long as it adds up to 4 bags. And we have a money back guarantee where if it doesn't work out, you get refunded. And um, if people want to get a bit more food on their first box, they could use the Pets 20 coupon code to get 20% off their first full box, which come with 16 bags. And again, they can mix and match any custom combination they want in their box. So they don't have to order like 16 beef. They could go like 2 beef, 4 turkey, 1 pork, 2 beef and pumpkin pate. If they have a puppy too, they can even include puppy recipes in that box. So, um, and you can do it without having to start a subscription. People can buy our boxes as they need to, 1 box at a time versus committing to a subscription. We do also have our custom meal plan subscription service. Um, so we try to give people as many options as we possibly can.
Yeah, you even on your website, I remember you just jogged my memory. You have an option in the custom meal plan section, I believe, where a pet parent can go in and put their dog's size and activity level and other information about their dog, and then your tool will say kind of what you'd recommend if you want to feed a partial kibble, partial this, or half and half, or all raised right. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, we give the options if you want to feed 100% raised right or 50% or 25%. So the 25% would be, say you're feeding like 75% kibble. You would be putting 25% of the bowl raised right in that option. So we try to help do the math for people, even though, if you look at the 100% option, you could just divide that by 4 to get to 25%. But we try to make things convenient and easy for everybody.
Yeah, because dog food's already stressful enough as it is. We just need somebody to show us, like, okay, what's good? How much do I feed? What does the feeding guidelines and your directions? What do those look like? 2.5% of ideal body weight, or I can't remember. Is it on the packaging?
So it's the most accurate one is on our website. We have a dog food calculator, a puppy food calculator, and a cat food calculator. We actually wanted to reference these calculators on our packaging, but because of labeling regulations, we weren't able to. So the packaging, the the feeding guidelines on our packaging aren't into the kind of custom detail that our website goes into.
Okay.
The ones on our packaging just assume that the dog's activity level is normal and that they would like their dog to maintain weight, where our website gives options for active dogs, for lazy dogs, for dogs who want their dog to maybe lose a bit of weight or conversely gain a bit of weight. So um, definitely suggest going to our website. At the very top, you can click the custom meal plan button, and then that'll take you through a calculator. And then if you go to the bottom of our website, the very footer, there is a button called recipes. If you follow that, we have custom calculators for each individual recipe because the kcals of each of our recipes is slightly different. So for the most accurate feeding guidelines for the specific recipe you're feeding, I would go there to find it.
I love that. Those resources are really helpful, and they make it really easy for a pet parent to navigate. So now I ask you the question, is there anything I haven't covered yet on the food or the brand that you want to make sure we address for anybody considering raised right?
I think
I
you've
think we've covered yeah, I think
done
we've covered it quite a bit.
everything. Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, I think, like I said before, I think this is just an outstanding food. I've been friends with slash fan of Dr. Karen Becker for years now, and she is behind the formulation of this food. So really, anything she does or touches is pure magic. So I could not recommend this brand enough, and everything will be linked down below for you, so you can check the description or the comments below to check out the food. And like Braden said, there's sample packs you can get just so you can try it out. Or again, you can go to your local pet shop and demand that they bring in some raised right, because this is the kind of food that we want our pet stores filled with because of the transparency, because of the quality, and because this is family owned, not some big venture backed company. So I think these are things that if we want to maintain quality pet food options on the market, this is the kind of brand we want to support. So, Braden, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me. It's been such an honor.
Oh, the honor's all mine, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, and people in Canada too. I know we don't do home delivery there, but we do have distribution across Canada. So if you go into your local pet store, you could ask them a special order for you. In Western Canada, our distributor's name is Abafina, and in Eastern Canada, they're named Freedom Pet. So if you're in Ontario, you can ask them to special order for you through Freedom Pet. If you're in, say, British Columbia or Alberta, you can ask for them to special order through Abafina. And just like Rachel said too, we are available through pet stores in the United States as well. So you could ask your local pet store to special order through our distributors down there as well, or you could order it online. Whatever you pick, it makes no difference to us. Whatever's most convenient for you.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to end here. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe to help